Hello and welcome to my channel. So you are a project manager or you're a project member. You have been requested by the project board to produce an end of stage or end of phase report. And you're wondering, where are you supposed to start from? What are you supposed to include? What do you need to start? Don't look elsewhere. In this video, I'm going to take you through step by step on all that you need for you to produce an end stage or end phase report. So let's dive in. Let us start by simple definitions. What is a phase or what is a stage in a project environment? Understanding that definition is very important. So in normal cases, no matter what industry, no matter what type of project, or even the size of the project, it is very apparent and also very logical for you to be able to control what is happening in the project, all the way from the start up to the end. So how do you control this? One of the most important, can I say, block or category to control a project is what is called a stage. So what do we mean by a stage? A stage is a set of activities that can be run either together in parallel or they can be run one after the other within a specified period or within some specified baselines. I know that is a bit mouthful. Let me try to expand more on that. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel and you find this video very helpful, don't forget to click the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help the channel to grow. It will also help the channel to produce more videos like this one. So depending on the type of the project you're actually implementing or you're running, you find there are some projects when you group or you categorize some project tasks or activities, you might be able to run them within a certain period, say within a week, for example, within a month, or within a year. Some of them, for example, if I give you software, they might require sequential running of those stages. In some cases, you find, if I can give you an example, maybe it's a market research project, or it could be another general research project. You'll find that some of the stages can also be run in parallel. So what does it mean? A stage is going to form blocks of work that you're supposed to do from the beginning all the way up to the end. And it is very important that whatever the size of the project that you're implementing, you are able to, can I say, divide it into blocks of stages or phases. It gives you control. You're going to understand more as we go through the video. It's going to give you more control. Say, for example, you are running a construction project. One of the stages you can talk about is the foundation, for example. Or maybe you can talk of the brick wall, for example. You can even talk of the roofing. If it was software environment or project, you will talk about requirements analysis. You also talk about solution design. You talk about solution build. And then you also talk about testing. So those ones, you can put them as simple blocks. They help to simplify any complex project. I've done it in my experience. I had a certain project which was very, very complex, and it was a banking project where we had to change the old system and replace it with a new system. And also at the same time, we were also changing the application which was being used by channels or integration into the core banking system. So that was more of a complex project. So what I had to do was to divide it into blocks all the way up to the go live date. So my advice is, each time you're given any project, look for opportunities to group specific activities, look for opportunities to group specific tasks so that you create those specific stages. So understanding a stage or a phase in a project environment is very important. I'm going to be using these two words interchangeably because it depends on what type of project or which part of the continent or the world are you implementing this project. Normally you can use either phase or you can use a stage. So these stages, they have to be managed. You manage before you go into the stage. You also manage before you leave the stage. That is very, very important. There's only one exception throughout my experience, which I've seen, is when you are planning for initiation of the project. Normally, what you should do is before you leave a certain phase, you plan for the next phase. But for initiation stage, it's more of an exception because there is no a preceding phase which you can talk about. So initiation stage is the only stage where you have to plan within the same phase what you need to do. You also need to plan what you need to do for the next stage. So you need to take note of that. Every project, every stage must be planned before you start that particular stage. So understanding what is a stage in a project environment is very, very important. After understanding what is a stage, it is also important to appreciate that it's a form of control that you can put in a project environment. So now you have understood what is a stage. You now need to plan. Each and every stage before you start it, except for initiation I said before you start it, it must be planned. I'm telling you, you are not a good project manager. That is my own view. If you have got a different view, let me know in the comment section. So you're not a good manager if you just end up in a project environment. If you just end up in a project stage. If you just end up in a project phase without planning. It is quite important that you look at what activities are supposed to be done. You also look at what deliverables are you supposed to produce from that particular phase. You also look at how are you going to manage some risks. You also look at how are you going to manage some issues. So it is quite important that as a project manager, you understand the planning levels. I'll quickly take you through the planning levels so that it makes sense. So in project management environment, you normally have 3 planning stages or plans that you work with. The first one, which is the highest, is what is called a project plan. A project plan in most cases is a high level, although making sense, but it's a high level with a start and an end date. But as you go down, you are now supposed to plan for a stage. So it's called a stage plan. So in the middle, you're supposed to have a stage plan. Except for project plan. Any other plan that you're going to have, it can be multiple times or iterative. I'm going to explain it better. So after the stage plan, you are also going to have what is called a team plan. So the difference between these 3 planning stages is the details. Project plan, high level. Stage plan, more details and iterative, which means you have so many stages in a project. Then team plan, very, very detailed and also iterative, which means you're going to have more. So as you move from the start of the project up to the end, as you get into each and every stage, you also need to plan it. When you finish the first stage, you plan it, finish, you plan the next one, finish, you plan the second one, like that. So once you're planning the stages, you also need to be very clear in terms of what are you going to produce for each and every stage, which is what is called project deliverables or project products. It depends on what you want to call them. So each and every stage must have defined project deliverables or products, whatever you're going to produce in that stage. It could be a document, it could be a physical item, it could be even just a result. It might not be tangible, but it could be a result or a benefit. You must be very clear on what you want to produce, then you're able to plan for it. For you to be able to plan, you also need to come up with what is called team plans, which means for each and every team, you assign them work to produce that particular deliverable. So it is also very important that you plan before you start the stage, you plan after the stage. So that is why we're calling it a stage or phase boundary. So this is the purpose of this video, to explain to you exactly what are you supposed to do and what are you supposed to act on during this stage boundary. Let's go to the beginning now. Before you move on to any phase of the project, you need that phase to be approved, okay? So what do I mean by this? A project board actually runs or owns. A project board owns the project, and the project manager runs the project on behalf of the project board. If you want to understand more about roles and responsibilities of a project board, I have a video on project board responsibility. You can also check it to understand and also to appreciate what is a project board, what are they supposed to do. So, before we move on to the next phase, as part of the control and also information sharing in a project environment, you are supposed to inform the project board. How do you inform them? You inform them through an end stage report. So imagine yourself as a project board member. If I just ask you to approve me to go to the next stage, obviously you have so many questions. Some of the questions are, what issues did you face in the current phase? For example, what risks are there? Is the business case still valid? As an example, you might even ask in terms of quality. How did you achieve the quality criteria that was agreed? Are the quality methods still valid? If you want to understand more about quality, I also have a video on how to manage quality in a project environment. So you're going to have so many questions. Have you updated your plan? As an example, they'll ask, have you also planned for the next stage? These are some of the questions which are going to come. In terms of risk, do we still have the same risks that we had? Do we still have the same risk categories? If you want to dive deeper into understanding risk categories, I also have a video on risk categories. You can also check it on my channel. I have created a template on the end stage report, which you can also download in the link in the description below. Okay, they can even ask, in terms of responses, how are we going to respond to some of these risks? Is it still the same like what we're doing in the first stage before we go to the next one? Also, if you want to understand about risk responses, I also have a video on risk responses. You can also watch it on my channel. So all these questions, you need to answer them, especially if you're a project manager. But how do you answer them? How do you pre-answer them? You create a report that is called end stage report. So this end stage report is actually triggered in two ways. For example, if the stage or the phase was running normally, no big challenges, everything is going according to plan. It's also possible that we have situations like that, where everything is going up to plan. It's running normally, everything is going up to plan, and then we are done with the phase or the stage. So you now want to move on to the next one. So that's a normal progression of a stage from start up to end. So you still need to produce what is called an end stage report, so that when you go to the project board, they do what is called end stage assessment session. So with this end stage report, there are a number of things you need to capture in this end stage report. I'm going to take you through this report because it's quite important for you to master. The second stage or the second trigger that can cause you to create an end stage report is what is called an exception, or maybe there's an issue, there's a challenge. You have now discovered that in terms of the tolerance or in terms of the baselines which were approved by the project board, you are not going to make it within the expected timelines or even cost or even scope or even risk or benefits. If you want to understand more about project baselines, I have a video on project baselines. You can also watch it on my channel. So you have discovered that you are not able to make it within the baseline items, either cost or even time. So you need to readjust. You cannot pretend as if things are going to adjust themselves. You need to readjust yourself. And one of the things that you have to readjust is obviously your plan. So you create what is called an exception plan. An exception plan is just an adjustment. Either, if you are lucky, you can bring back the project on track, or for example, you want to make sure that at least you recover the lost time without affecting much of the deviation of the ultimate project. So you create an exception plan. Within this exception plan, you also create an exception report. I'm going to take you through what is an exception report later on in this video. So why this exception? You want to replan the work that is outstanding. Don't make a mistake I've seen most project managers do. When they are preparing exception report, they try to plan for everything again. That is not going to work. The expectation is when you're doing exception planning, you start from where you have ended. Whatever has been produced or closed in terms of deliverables, you don't need to plan for them. You only plan from where you are to where you're expecting yourself to finish that specific stage. That is very, very important. In my projects, that is one thing I'm always watching out for. Whatever I've done, I've closed, I don't need to repeat it. Unless if you're doing a project which requires a repetition, which is normally very rare in terms of deliverables, you start from where you are all the way up to the end of the expected stage. So that is very, very crucial as a project manager. So just to summarize, these are the two triggers of end stage report. You need to understand it very well. Either the project is finished normally, so you're closing the stage. Either the stage is finished normally, and therefore you're closing the stage. That is first trigger. So you create an end stage report, you submit for end stage assessment to project board. Then number two is there's an exception or there's a challenge. You're not going to make it either based on the tolerances or it's even based on the baselines that have been approved. I'll give you a good example. You have just been asked, or you're planning to run a stage within $100,000 as an example. And then you've realized that it's going to cost you probably an additional 40 to make it 140,000 US dollars. And the tolerance is only 10, which means you're expected to run it either from 100,000 to 110, but you're already to 140. So that's already an exception, which means you need approval because that is now beyond what you have budgeted for. So that is also a trigger, which means you have to stop what you're doing, you create that report, you submit, you get approval for the additional budget. In some cases, you might not need to stop, but you just have to engage the project board to do additional approval. Before they do additional approval, make sure your exception report, your exception plan, they are all in place because that is what you're going to present to convince them to approve it for you. So that is very, very important. Before they do. So in this section of the video, I'm going to take you through what is an end phase or end stage report. It is very important that you appreciate all the sections in this particular report. So let's move through one by one, and I would encourage you to watch it all the way up to the end, because at the end of this video, you are going to appreciate and you are going to be able or capable to produce an end stage report that can be approved by any project member. So let's move on. So there are a number of sections you need to complete. The first one is actually, as a project manager, what is your view in terms of what has happened in the stage? So this is where you're expected to provide your own views as a project manager. Remember, project manager is the pilot of the project. You're the driver of the project. So you must have some view which is better than either project members, which is better than either even project board members. So the first section that you have to complete is your view of the stage. What does it mean? Your view of the stage looks at a number of things. For example, what issues did you face in that particular stage? You need to expand on that. You need to explain. For example, I faced resource issues as an example, or for example, I faced financial issues to to continue with the project. Or maybe, for example, you might say it was even internal challenges that you might have faced. You also need to give your perspective in terms of the risks that you might have encountered in that particular stage. What risks did you encounter? And do we still continue with the same mitigation, or you have decided to change? So that information also is very important. And also in terms of the tolerance of the stage, you also need to be very clear. By tolerance, I mean, to what extent are you expected to go beyond what has been approved? In some cases, they give them as a percentage. In some cases, they give them as a specific figure. Say, for example, they might say 5% of the budget or 2 weeks of the timeline, as an example. But you find in some cases, they might say 50,000 US dollars, or they might even say 10,000 US dollars. So you also need to give your perspective as a project member or as a project manager. How did you see the stage as a whole? So that summary is very important. And I can tell you from my experience, this is the section which is going to lift the level of confidence, not just within the project team, but also within the project board. So if you do it very well, and I encourage you to be honest and make sure that everything is very transparent. You shouldn't be afraid of project board, because these are the people who are supposed to support you, to help you to run the project. So you also need to be honest and transparent in this particular section. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel and you find this video very helpful, don't forget to click the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button, so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help the channel to grow. It will also help the channel to produce more videos like this one. I hope the second section is for you to look at project objectives as a whole. So you also need to present. Once you finish this stage, how do you foresee the project objectives being met? Based on this specific phase that you've finished, you also need to give an assessment. For example, you might say, based on the ability or based on the achievements that we have made in this particular stage, the benefits of these projects are going to be realized probably earlier than what was planned. Just a simple example. You can put whatever you want there, depending on the type of the project. Then the next section that is also expected to be part of the end stage report is also how did you achieve, or what is the status of the stage objectives. So this is where you're now looking at what products or deliverables did you plan for that particular stage, and using those deliverables, how many were actually achieved or completed, how many were still standing and why, and should they be moved to the next project, or you have to extend for you to complete them. In my experience, I've seen that in most cases, it's not always 100%, unless it's something that is very, very small. In most cases, you want to make sure that you have delivered all that is required in that stage, but it might not happen. So you have to say maybe 10 of them, they were completed, 2 of them, they are pending. So what does it mean for these 2? Are you taking them forward to the next stage, or you still need additional time to complete them? So that information is also very, very important. Then the next section is also the assessment on a number of parameters. So the first parameter you need to also provide as part of the report is the business case. So this section, we are now capturing, in terms of business case, is it still viable to run this project? Or this project, is it still sustainable based on the business case? There might be different reasons why some of these projects can be stopped in a specific stage. I can give you a good example. Say, for example, you wanted to produce a certain product which you want to sell in the market, and the process of creating this product is actually taken through as a project. However, maybe because of your technology, because of your skills, your numbers, or your financial position, a competitor was quick to produce a similar product and it's already in the market selling, which means probably yours is not going to be very good in terms of financial results. So, in terms of business case analysis, you want to update the project board after this stage. Is it still viable? As a project manager, you also have a right to say you don't think it's still viable to continue with the project. Either you stop, or you re-strategize, or you think of something else. So that section is also very important. Then the next section is also your assessment on the risks. Okay? So risks can be assessed from different angles. You can assess it from proximity, for example. You can also, proximity is how close is the risk in the project or in the phase. You can also assess it depending on impact also. You can also assess it depending also on the owner, or the owner of that risk. So you must have that section as a part of your end stage report. How do you assess the risks, or what risks were actually closed, or which were moved from one stage to the other? So that is very, very important to put it as a section. You also want to put like mitigations. There are some risks. The impact could be high initially, but as you go further into other stages, the impact becomes very low. So that is also very important that you make that assessment. And the next section is also on the quality. Okay? So based on this phase which is completing, you want to put it in your report to the project board in terms of quality. How did it go? For example, you might say your quality method, which is in process as compared to appraisal. In process, it means you measure quality as you go. Appraisal is you finish first, then you measure quality. So you also need to clarify in terms of quality methods, how effective were they? Do they require any improvements? Do you have to improve the quality criteria, and so on and so forth? So that section is also very important, and you should also include it in your end stage report. Then the next section is also on the next plan. You also need to confirm. You need to reassure the project board that although you have finished this particular stage, you have also planned for the next stage. Remember what I said. Planning is very important for each and every part of the project. The 3 plans: project plan, stage plan, and team plans. So as you move from one stage to the other, you also need to plan for that stage. So you need to also reconfirm to the project board that the planning was done properly. The next section, then the next should be on issues or challenges. I can tell you from my experience, there is no stage that is going to be very smooth. You are going to face a number of challenges, some of them human, some of them non-human. So as a project manager, you should be making decisions. There are certain issues which you might not make a decision or close as a project manager. Those ones, you keep them as exceptions, you take them to the project board for decision making. So there must be a section where you put issues and also challenges that you faced in that particular stage before you go to the next one. The advantage of doing that is you are going to pick so many lessons from those issues and challenges, and even some of the challenges, they might even require to rethink or to replan. So when you're planning, say for example, you're doing a team plan, those challenges you know from the previous phase or previous stage, you can even try to mitigate against them. You can even try to mitigate against them in the next phase. So the issues and challenges, they must also be captured in your report. Then the next section is also on the lessons report. You also need to capture lessons as you go. I'm telling you from my experience as a project manager, lessons are very important. If you learn lessons from the start of the project all the way up to the end of the project, life becomes very easy. You are going to be able to even proactively prevent some of the issues from happening because you have lessons. That is number one. Number two, lessons, they also help you to feed into the next stage. They can even also help you to feed into the next project. So it's also another gold mine, especially for the organization. Next projects, they're going to be better because of lessons learned from previous projects. So in your end stage report, make sure you also have the lessons learned section where you put the major, don't put everything, put the major lessons that you have learned in that particular stage. That is quite important. It can be passed into the current project, or even the organization can even decide, project board, they can even decide to immediately pass it into the organization for the benefit of that lesson. So it must be part of that. Next, the last section, but not least, is now for you to mention or to clarify the next stages. What are the objectives of the next stages? What is expected of the next stages? For example, deliverables, products, or even timelines, or even the costs. Those baselines I was talking about. You now need to define them so that you take the project board on a journey. This is the phase I was running. These are the issues, these are the challenges, and so on and so forth. Now for the next phase or stage, this is what we're expecting to be doing. And these are the timelines. These are the costs that is expected. This is the scope, for example. This is the risk. This is the quality, those items like benefits, what are going to be the benefits in that particular stage. I can tell you, not every stage is going to have a benefit. I can understand. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comment section below. So there are some cases where a stage is building up to the final benefit. So of course, you cannot expect to be documenting benefits at that particular point. So once this report is done, what I normally do, I'm going to share with you my experience is, after drafting the report, which I normally use through project administrator. If you want to understand the information and the roles and responsibilities of a project administrator, I also have a video. You can also check it on my channel. So after the project administrator has drafted the report, I also go through it, enrich the document. One thing you have to do, and I'm advising you, is you are supposed to go through with the team. Don't create a report as a project manager. You go straight to project board. I've seen so many project managers making that mistake. Information can come from anyone. So what I normally do, I create a team's call or meeting. All the project members, they join. I take them through the sections, the information, I explain. It's like I'm presenting to them before the project board. Then you get to hear the feedback or even corrections, fine-tuning, amendments. By the time you go to the project board, your report is a bit refined and better. I'm telling you, what you're going to hear from the people when you go through the end stage report is very important, especially on the lessons learned. There are some lessons learned you cannot pick while you're sitting on your chair as a project manager, but they can come from the team members. And that is very, very important. So you must take note that you should present your report to the project team before you present it to the project board. That is very, very important. So in this section of the video, I'm going to take you through an exception report, which is normally coming through managing the stage boundaries or phase boundaries. It's a very important report. And hear it from me, not always that you should create this report, but there are cases where you have to create this report, which means you want to clarify a specific situation. Say, for example, you're now overshooting or you're now going beyond your tolerance or even your baseline approvals from the project board. So you need to create an exception report. So it is a number of sections, and I'm going to take you through these sections. So the first section is the exception title. It must be very descriptive. What has caused this? So you need to describe, the title must be very clear. Say, for example, the stage is not going to be completed. Okay, that's the exception. So in the title, you can say failure to complete the stage within the timelines. Okay, so that is very important. Every exception must have a title. If someone is going to look at it in future to pick any lessons learned, the exception title should be descriptive and meaningful to them. Make it short, don't make it too long. I hope the first you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel and you find this video very helpful, don't forget to click the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button, so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help the channel to grow. It will also help the channel to produce more videos like this one. I hope the second section of the exception is also the cause of the exception. What is it that has caused you to go beyond the tolerance, or what is it that has caused you to go beyond the baselines? So you need to be detailed in this particular item, because it will make sense to a number of either project members or project board. What has caused you to fail to deliver within the timelines, to fail to deliver within the budgeted time? That is very, very important for you to note. Say, for example, you might say, due to say, we all know about COVID. Maybe it was because of you were running this project during the COVID era. You can even say, due to the COVID pandemic, we had to stop the project for 2 months. And therefore, what we had planned to complete in 2 months was also affected. So the cause must be very clear, okay? Don't just put something that is not very clear. Otherwise, people might think it's not a proper exception. Maybe it's poor project management skills. So that section must be very, very clear. Then, the third one is now to capture the implications or the impact of the cause. If the cause was pandemic, so what was the impact? If you look at this example, there were so many areas which were impacted. Number one, maybe you've lost project members due to the pandemic. I've seen some of the projects losing members during this time because there was no one who could control it. There was no any way to treat until later on in the phase of the pandemic. Then the second one is also on the staff morale, for example. You know, you have started something, you stop again, you come and you do it again. So those are some of the implications. It could be implication even on the business case. Is it still sustainable? Is it still viable? Whatever has caused that exception. It could also be implications on the benefits of the project. Do you still expect to see the same benefits? And so on and so forth. So that is very, very important to also capture the implications. It could be implication even on quality. It could be even implication on the risk that we have. It could be even implication on the revenue that you're expecting to generate from there. It might even have an implication on the technology or something technical. So it is very important that under your implications or consequences of the deviation of the exception, what is it that is going to be impacted? That is very important to capture. Then also the next one, which is the fourth one, is also on the options. You need to describe, or you need to note, whether in bullet form or detailed, but you should be able to put down what options were available at that particular point when the exception happened, okay? So, for example, you might be running a construction project and probably there were also some civil unrest and therefore you could not continue with the construction project. So what options were available? The first option, obviously, was to increase security so that you continue working on the project. Or for example, the second option, if you're in stoppage, it's also another option. The other option was to stop it so that you're able to protect lives and you're also able to move forward with the project. So these are just simple examples, but it depends on the project type and also on the project industry that you are working on. But you also need to capture what options were available to you as a project manager or to you as a project team. You need to put them down in your exception report. Because remember, you want to convince people who are not on the ground, who are not following daily on what is happening on the project. You want to convince them to be able to accept that it's a genuine exception, and therefore they must give you approval either to extend or to rearrange or to replan. So you should also be as transparent and as honest as possible. Don't put anything to hide some information. It will backfire in future, I can tell you. Now, after giving the options, the next section that is expected is your recommendation. So you know what caused it, you know the implications, you also know the options that are available. What are you recommending as someone who's on the ground, as the pilot of the plane, as the project manager of the project? What are you recommending? I've seen so many project managers making mistakes. They just go there without any recommendation. They just go with a list of options, then they ask project board to choose. I'm telling you, don't make that mistake. As a project manager, you're driving things. You're running the project. So you should be able to make a decision. You should be able to make a recommendation. So this section is where you're now going to put your recommendation. Based on the situation, my recommendation is option 2. So that at least you go to the project board with so many options, but with what you think is best for the situation. Don't make a mistake I've seen other project managers doing. When they're being asked for options, they only come up with one option. I'm telling you, that is going to infuriate your project board members, because you're boxing them into one solution. You're boxing them into one decision. So even if doing nothing is an option, you need to put it there. Otherwise, you will find it very difficult. They'll ask you to go and analyze again, wasting time. So go there with, at least from my experience, 3 options is better, minimum 3 options. Unless if your situation and your project does not allow, then probably you go with 1 or 2. You might have a different view, let me know in the comment section. But for me, 3 options is better for you to present to the project board to make a decision. Now, then the last section that is also expected after a recommendation on the exception report, it is the lessons learned. Please hear it from me. Every exception, you must learn something. Me, I learn every day from each project that I'm running. Every exception, you must learn something. You cannot go to the project board without any lessons learned. What you're trying to portray is it can be done again. It can happen again. Someone can repeat it again. So you should be able to capture in an exception report the last part. What lessons did you pick from here? What lesson did you pick from that stage? What lessons did you pick for the project? What lessons did you pick for the next project? Or even what lessons did you pick for the organization or corporate, whatever project you're running on? So your exception must have those specific lessons. I can tell you, minimum 2 lessons. It's very unusual to learn only 1 lesson when there's an exception, because an exception is affecting a stage. A stage in most projects, depending on the type of project, in most projects, it's a prolonged period. It might be 1 week, it might be 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, but rarely do you have a stage in 1 hour or 10 minutes. So there must be something that you have to pick as a lesson, whether human or non-human lesson, but you must pick that if you had done this better, this exception was not going to happen. So you have to capture that part of the exception. If you think there are more items to capture in an exception report, let me know in the comment section. But as for now, this is what I'm covering, and this is what you need to understand for you to create an exception report that is going to be approved or accepted by the project board. If you want me to create additional videos based on what we have gone through in this video, maybe there's a concept which is not clear, or maybe there's an idea which is not clear, you can reach out to me, or you can let me know in the comment section below. If you want